I start with a bit of an introduction. So, you guys are here to learn more about social media, to learn more about positioning, about PR. So, let me introduce myself really quickly. I'm a media professional with 7 years of experience, but what makes me unique, if I do say so myself, is that my experience is tailored to professional wrestling. I've only worked for a couple non-wrestling companies, but I've been in the wrestling business for over 7 years now. And I have a master's degree in new media strategic communications. I've studied all over the world pretty much. I've done wrestling things and media things across 3 continents in 3 languages. I do speak Spanish. I'm not going to speak Spanish today. I know we have some Spanish speaking friends joining us today, but that's probably a task for a different time, not today. Um, but I've done this all over the world. I've built my socials as well, and I've used my socials as a kind of a sandbox to test out strategies, to test out any kind of new features that the world throws at us. I have about 500,000 followers across all platforms. Might be a bit miscellaneous what I do on social media, but that's just all in the spirit of testing things, right? Um, so I've been doing seminars in real life for wrestling promotions, and as well, I've been doing personal individual guidance programs for pro wrestling professionals, pro wrestling promotions, pro wrestling promoters, pro wrestling people, personalities. Um, if you're interested in that, we can definitely talk about that later, but this here is more of a general knowledge type of situation. Like I said, feel free to have your camera on or off, have yourself muted or not muted. If you have any questions as I'm talking, put them in the chat. I'll address them as we're talking. Or if you feel like you want to hold off until the end, I will open the floor for questions in the end as well. So if everyone's ready, let's talk about social media, online presence, and first of all, why is that important for you as a pro wrestling professional? And one thing, one harsh truth that I'd like to start with is being present in the online space is not anymore an added bonus. It's not anymore a fun thing to do or a cool thing to do or an added advantage. It's a must. You cannot survive without that in the wrestling space. Absolutely impossible. A wrestling personality without media presence is a contradiction. It's impossible. Unless, of course, you're John Moxley. And as we know, exceptions only confirm the rules. And my clients that I work with on a personal level will know that I have my own definition of what a professional wrestler is, and I can share it with you guys later in the emails or if any of you want to talk personally. But being in media is a part of your job as a wrestler or as any other kind of wrestling personality. And I know we do have a lot of wrestling personalities, wrestling creators, wrestling on-screen characters here today, not necessarily just wrestlers, but this is an umbrella term, an umbrella situation for all of us. So with professional wrestling, we do have a big business model that pretty much any wrestling promotion, any wrestling professional operates within. And obviously, WWE is the leader in the market. WWE is the biggest, the relatively oldest, right? The most successful monetarily company that we have in the market. And you may like or love or hate the product that they put out, but the truth is that they are the most active, the most profitable company in the market right now. So as we're modeling the big model, the business model, we have to look at WWE. So what WWE shows us is that there are 4 principal activities that generate income in wrestling. Number one is the one that we're most familiar with, and that a lot of people, not to get ahead of myself, but that a lot of people mistakenly deem as the main one, mistakenly pay the most attention to. And that would be live events and appearances. What does that mean? For a pro wrestling promotion, that would be their live shows, their meet and greets that they organize, their community events, fan fests. For you as a personality or a wrestler who's independent, That means your bookings at wrestling shows, but that also extends to you being at your merch table, you interacting with the fans, and you participating in conventions, in cons, meet and greets. So anything that has to do with you physically appearing at an event and getting paid for that. And that's your income generating activity that a lot of people honestly stop at. I see a lot of wrestlers or wrestling personalities, announcers, whatever you want to name it, who think that's the end of it. And it really is not. Like I said, in the modern world, it's impossible to exist without three other ones, especially as we have the main biggest company that employs all of that. And again, any other successful company, TNA, AEW, NWA, they know of those four activities and they employ them. So the second activity would be media rights and content. When it comes to a pro wrestling promotion, that would be a TV deal. That would be a streaming platform. That would be any way that the fan can access their product. Watch it. Again, for larger companies, TV. For smaller companies, their streaming platform. For even smaller companies, a spot on a streaming platform. You know, we have Triller, we have IWTV. So any kind of content related platform where people can consume the main product of the company. But for you as an individual, if you're independent, that would be the content that you create. And when I say income generating activity, that means that this is not just any content that you create. This is not just you existing on your social media. This is the content that you monetize. So posting a selfie on Instagram, for example, does not directly fall into this category. However, if you're a YouTuber, right, if you have a YouTube channel, I know a lot of people who are here with us right now do. If you have a YouTube channel and you have it monetized, you've gone over the threshold and you have ad placements. This is your content media rights. Or if you're a wrestler and you have Patreon, a Cameo, OnlyFans, so any kind of paid content that you sell, for the lack of a better word, right, to people, that would be your media and content rights. The fourth one, a lot of people are familiar with, is merchandise and products. This deals with any kind of physical product that you can provide to your fans, that you can sell to them. And that could be absolutely anything from the tiniest things like stickers, pins, to the larger things like we see bigger companies do memorabilia, for example, ring-worn items that are signed and numbered, or pieces of a canvas, or pretty much anything that's a physical, tangible product, very simple transaction. The person pays and has the product, right? The fourth activity is sponsorships. And this is often overlooked by independent wrestlers. You will never catch a bigger promotion overlooking this. And, you know, you see the WWE canvas plastered with sponsors. You see AEW collaborating with HBO shows, collaborating with Cracker Barrel, collaborating with video games. Very important. It can take different forms, right? It can be a sponsored show. It can be a company sponsoring a wrestler on a show or sponsoring a match or even a segment. I saw Dunkin' Donuts sponsor a segment on the wrestling show. That was great. Or it could be a collaboration that's mutually beneficial and that generates income for both companies. So both companies showcase each other. For example, I don't know if you guys saw it and if it's relevant to you, but I'm personally a big Post Malone fan. And Oreo actually released Post Malone Oreos with, you know, the engravings that have to do with his albums, and it's like a random thing. You don't know what you get. The branding is all his. That's a great, great, great example of a sponsorship. We saw some new people join while I was saying that, so let me just reiterate myself a little bit. Four main income-generating activities in wrestling: live shows and appearances, media rights and content, merchant products, and sponsorships. And one thing that people mistakenly assume is that the wrestling, the in-ring action, is your main income-generating activity. It is not. And that is not just me saying that. That is how it works according to the big model that WWE has tested with decades of experience. And in that big model, the in-ring action or live appearances, meet and greets, is roughly 10% of their income. And then the three other ones are divided into 30, 30, 30%. What does that mean for you as a wrestler, as a personality, as an entrepreneur, right? That means that if you're not currently employing the three other activities, or you're only employing 2 out of 4, or you're only employing 3 out of 4, you can predict what your income can be and you can scale your income. So if you're only taking bookings right now, you're at your merch table, but you don't have a wide range of products available, you don't have a sponsor, you don't sell content, that means that what you're earning right now from wrestling is 10% of what you could be earning from wrestling. So you can very easily count, the easy math, how much you could be earning. So how, great question. How do I start? That's always the question that I get, and I'm sure any professional in any field gets. I'm a big purpose and goal person, right? Whenever clients come to me, and I have clients in wrestling, but I also have non-wrestling clients, right? I have clients in the beauty industry. I have clients in the fashion industry. I have a client who's a soft skills coach, which is very interesting. But a lot of the time people come to me and they tell me, oh, tell me how to get more followers, or I need help creating content. I don't know what to create. And I am that terrible person who stops them in their tracks and goes, okay, you have to answer some questions, not necessarily to me, but to yourself. Why are you doing this? What is the purpose of this? What is the main goal? And, as for you as a wrestling personality, I think, your goal depends on one of those 4 activities. Like one of them will be the main one or evenly distributed. But there's different types of goals that you can have. For example, I need to grow my audience for promoters to take me more seriously, to book me on their shows, for me to be able to draw. Or I earn a certain amount of money from wrestling in my merch, but I don't sell content. So I want to sell content. I want to monetize. I want to have exclusive content for people to buy. Or I want to become sort of an influencer and I want to have brand deals. I want to have people come to me and place ads on my social media. It can be anything. I can't tell you what your goal is. That's for you to figure out. But those are just some options that I'm throwing out there for you to get your thoughts going, right? So to determine what's the purpose of your socials, you have to ask yourself some existential questions. Question number 1, who am I? And that is not to say what's the meaning of life, right? What is a person? What is a soul and body? That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about who am I on social media? When you exist in the online space, who am I? Am I an athlete? Do I want to act like a professional athlete? Do I want to present that? Do I want to focus on my performance, focus on my conditioning, focus on sharing my training, my goals? Or am I a comedian? There's a lot of comedy wrestlers. Am I going to create funny content, which is a great thing? It performs amazingly. Am I going to entertain people, make people laugh? Or am I an expert? Do I host seminars? Do I know how to wrestle better than my peers? Am I going to teach people how to wrestle? Am I going to promote that? So you're going to ask yourself, who am I when I'm on social media? Question number 2, what do I do? Also might seem like a simple question, but all of those questions are simple and not easy. That's going to be the motto of today's seminar. What do I do? Do I entertain? Do I scare people? Do I educate people? Do I don't know, seek out partnerships or sponsorships? You're asking yourself, what am I doing here on social media, on this social media app, be it Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, anything? The next question is, why? Why am I doing this? For you, again, as wrestling people, I think the answer is pretty clear. You have to, as a professional, you just have to do it. It has to be a part of your self-promotion. So for you, I think this is a pretty easy question. And the fourth question is, for whom? You have to have a pretty decent understanding of what your audience is. And this, again, might seem like a very easy question, but a lot of the time when I ask people, they say, oh, for wrestling fans. No, that is not a good answer. There's a lot of different kinds of wrestling fans who like different kinds of wrestling, different kinds of wrestlers, different age groups, different promotions, different genres. They're located in different countries. They're of different ages. And I'm not saying that there's not going to be exceptions. I'm not saying that You sat down, you determined that you're for males over 25 who live in the American South, and that's it. And no one else is ever going to follow you. I'm not at all saying that. But you have to have an understanding of the so-called avatar of your perfect fan, your perfect follower. And that is very important because ultimately that's what you're seeking. I've been to a lot of wrestling shows in different states, different countries. I've talked to a lot of fans. And with me doing this, I was talking to them with research in mind, right? So from what I've heard, I've determined that an average fan spends, give or take, $200 a month on wrestling. And that includes everything. That includes tickets, merch, subscriptions, paid content, travel for wrestling if they do travel for wrestling. So that's about the median number. And they're more inclined to spend that money on their favorite wrestlers. And if they do have a favorite wrestler, they are willing and ready to spend that money on them, whether they're actively wrestling or not, whether they're injured, retired, I don't know, disappeared off the face of the earth, they're still ready to spend money on them. And your goal here is to give them something to spend money on and to find those people who will be willing to support you. So to do that, you have to have an understanding of what kind of person is that. Onto positioning. What is positioning? Is pretty much the extension of the who am I question. It's how you present yourself on social media. And I think if we were talking about how the question why and for whom for you as a wrestling professional was easier than it would have been for a content creator or expert or doctor, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. This question of positioning, in my humble opinion, is more complicated for you as a wrestling professional, especially if you're any kind of on-screen character, be it a wrestler, ring announcer, referee. Here you have to ask yourself also a bunch of questions, and you have to kind of determine the ground rules and the goalposts, just so that you find it easier to move forward. Because I see a lot of people who try to grow their following and they don't know what their boundaries are. And they're trying to ponder to this audience, ponder to that audience, and then they feel like they're losing themselves. Then they feel like, oh, this is unnatural to me. I'm not an influencer, right? I'm a wrestler. This is not what I want to do. And I have a lot of people coming to me with this fear of, oh my gosh, how am I gonna do social media? It's so unnatural. I don't want to be this. I don't want to be that. I don't want to be something that I'm not. I also don't want you to be something that you're not. That's not at all what this is about. But you have to determine those rules for yourself. So if you're an on-screen character, are you a face or a heel? When you're posting, are you keeping kayfabe or not? And that also heavily depends on your gimmick, right? Because I think we all recently saw Vinny Massaro tweet something that went semi-viral where he said, you'll literally see horror characters, like masked horror characters, FX makeup, tweet about how they just had Starbucks. Like tweet about how you just ate a goat or something. That's going to be more on brand, more in character, and that's going to further your character better and more. And that's what people come to see. But then we see those things work perfectly well in a different way, where we have Abaddon, for example, and their character is very, very horror, very immersive, and they're in character at any meet and greet, at any event that you catch them at. They're super, super in character. But they're tweeting funny gifs and they're interacting with fans, and it doesn't read as weird or strange, you know? So you have to determine that for yourself. Am I going to be in character? Am I going to be a bad guy or girl? Am I going to be a good guy or girl? Then how much of your personal life are you willing to share? Sharing personal life is always good in terms of content because fans love you and ultimately they follow you on social media because they want to get to know you. They want to see something that they can't see on screen. They want to see something that they can't see when you're in the ring. They want to get to know you on a more personal level. But it's on you to establish a boundary of how much of that you're actually willing and ready to share. Are you going to share your partner? Are you going to share your family? Are you going to share your animals? Are you going to share what city you live in? Because if we're talking about bigger followings, even that is unsafe information to share. You definitely pretty rarely see WWE superstars share even what city they live in. let alone area or anything like that. And that's another thing, by the way, to be really careful of, to not post your location in real time, to not post places that you frequent in real time. And if you have a smaller following now, it might seem like something that's not that serious or not big of a deal right now, but it can become that serious down the line. So you have to have those boundaries and not break them, even if it feels like whenever you do, it attracts attention, but you have to keep that integrity for yourself as well. Then another question to answer is, am I willing to create content? And I know creating content is an umbrella term that encapsulates everything. Like I said, you're taking a selfie, posting it on your story, that's creating content by definition, right? But what I mean by this here is, are you using your social media as just a support for your wrestling career, and you're highlighting your wrestling career? You're highlighting what shows you're appearing at, how you're traveling to shows, how you're training, blah, blah, blah. Or are you willing to create content that can exist within itself? We see a lot of wrestlers create, like I said, comedy content or series of TikToks or challenges or TikTok trends, or that's how we know RJ City. He had his daily streams with a coffee in his underwear, and that's how he got his big break, and that's how he got the audience that he has now, not necessarily through posting wrestling pictures or wrestling videos. So that's another question to ask yourself. Am I willing to create content that's going to be standalone content? You don't have to. It's good, but you don't have to. You can do extremely well without that as well. Then if we're talking about, signed wrestlers, if you have any sort of contract with any sort of promotion, you have to read it thoroughly. You have to ask yourself, am I allowed to do this? So what does your contract allow or not allow? Different contracts are different in that regard. Most contracts nowadays allow you to monetize your content, but it's a good thing to check as well. So now that you've answered all those questions, now that you've set the ground rules, you start sharing content, you start sharing your life. Where do you start? Ask yourself, what's something that I already do, that I already share on social media, that I could do better? For example, you take pictures, you take outfit pictures, you take gym pictures, you take pictures of your food. Ask yourself, what's a better way to do it? Is there a way to make it visually more appealing? Is that a way to, whenever you take a picture or mirror selfie, to check if there's trash behind you, to check if there's cables behind you, to check if the lighting is good, to maybe buy an iPhone light on Amazon for $12 and up your game? Or if you're taking pictures of your food, does your plate look nice? Does your food look appealing? Is this, is this the time to take a picture of it? And then is there a form that I could share it in that's better for the algorithm, that's more modern, that's more appealing? For example, if you used to share for example, your breakfast every day, and you share it just like a square picture on your timeline, square pictures are completely out. Instagram has fully outgrown square pictures. Instagram is about vertical pictures, portrait, orientation pictures, and Instagram is about flip posts. So if your post only has one picture in it, it's automatically going to perform worse than if it has two or more. So there you go. That's a more efficient way to share your breakfast. Then an even more efficient way would be an Instagram reel. We live in the era of video content. Video content rules the world. Every single social media app is rewiring itself to accommodate for video content, and especially for short form vertical video content. So for Instagram, there's two truths to that. I see the question in the chat. I'll address it in a second. There's two truths to that. Truth number one is, any social media platform pushes its newest feature the most. And out of feed content, reels are the newest features, so it's pushed the most. And the truth number two is that it's video content and it's something that users enjoy. So it's something that's naturally going to bring in more traffic. We have a question. Are there ideal times to share content on different social media? Yes, absolutely there are. But that doesn't depend on social media. It doesn't depend on the website. It depends on your audience. So actually, if you look at your platform, at your backend on your Instagram or on your Facebook, I'm not sure Twitter has that. I think Instagram and Facebook have it. If you look at the analytics, it's actually going to show you days and times where your audience, being your followers who have already committed and followed you, times when they're the most active. So the general recommendation would be to post about an hour-ish before the peak time. That would be the perfect time to post. So now that we know that we've perfected what we already do, the next question to ask yourself is, what's going on in my life that I'm willing to share that I don't yet share? For example, you have a hobby. You love skateboarding, or you love fishing, or you love golfing. Something that's outside of wrestling, but that could, A, help you connect with fans, because there could be fans who also love fishing or skateboarding or golfing, and they're going to see you do it, and they're going to feel even more connected to you. And that number two could humanize you. Because if you're only going to post pictures of yourself as a wrestler, as a character, there's not going to be much ground for people to connect with you. And like I said, again, if your gimmick is a masked murder goat, for sure don't go out of that, right? That's just your choice. But if you are posting as yourself, if you are posting as a person, you're just going to give people more ways to connect with you. Anything, absolutely anything that you share, and that goes for real life, not just internet, but we're talking about the internet right now. So anything that you share, any picture, any post, any video, any thought, any tweet, anything that you share can only elicit two types of reaction from the users. Reaction number one is, me too. They're going to relate to it. They're going to understand. They're going to apply it to themselves and be like, huh, yeah, that could be, I agree, or I do that too, or I like that too. That's just an enthusiastic, connected reaction. That's what we're looking for. Reaction number two is, so what? And that's the reaction that we don't like. That's when you throw out information out there or pictures that don't really have any substance or any background or any, anything interesting about them. And the person sees it, thinks, why do I care? And scrolls right by. So that's the reaction that we want to avoid. Obviously, you can't make everyone like you, but the goal here is to make connections. I've been saying the word connect a lot, and that's because it's absolutely crucial. And especially, in the world of wrestling, we know our community is very tightly knit. So we're not only talking about fans, we're also talking about promoters. We're also talking about your fellow wrestlers. We're also talking about scouts who are always lurking, and we all know that. So you're trying to establish a connection. And who knows, maybe, you posted your favorite beer, and the owner of the promotion that you've been dreaming to get booked by also loves that beer. And that would be that one thing that will push them over the edge and they would book you. So that creates a sense of belongingness. And the sense of belongingness is a very, very important thing to establish, again, with peers, with promoters, with decision makers, but also with fans. That's the reason fans interact with you in any way. That's the reason they follow you. That's the reason they buy your merch. That's the reason they come to you at your table. That's the reason they ask to take a selfie with you, because they want to feel like they belong, because they want to feel like a part of something good, a part of something that they like, a part of a lifestyle that they like. And this is where something comes in that I call a healthy sales algorithm. One thing that I have to point out is you may know this or not know this, but you are in sales. You are a sales professional. And in that regard, your product can be anything. It can be your wrestling, it can be your merch, it can be the content that you sell, it can be your expertise, it can be your role that you have in the show. If you're not a wrestler, it can be your voice, it can be your look, it can be whatever you're trying to sell to whoever, to fans, promoters, to decision makers, to promotions, anyone. And this is where the healthy sale algorithm comes in. a lot of people think that if you're selling a product, for example, you have, I don't know, an apple orchard, you grow apples, and you go to the market to sell your apples. So apple is the product, and your goal is to shove that apple into someone's hand and have them give you money and buy it. That's not how any of this works anymore. When you're selling something, you're not selling the product. You're selling feelings. You're selling a lifestyle. You're selling the belongingness. So the first stage of the healthy sale algorithm is atmosphere. If you've ever paid attention to any kinds of ads, you will always see that the more expensive the product is, the more it's focused on atmosphere. If you're buying, I don't know, toothbrush for $2, they're going to advertise a toothbrush. But if you're buying a luxury perfume that's $500, in the commercial, you will barely see a mention of it. Maybe by the end, maybe a little bit, but you will see a celebrity. You will see a beautiful setting. You will see beautiful camera work. You will see a lifestyle that people want to be a part of. So you are an expensive product, if you would allow me to give you that compliment. Ultimately, what we sell is we sell our talent, we sell our uniqueness, we sell our brains, we sell our knowledge. Because wrestling, and if any workers who are in the chat want to correct me, but wrestling is not purely physical labor. Wrestling is mental labor. Wrestling is cerebral labor. Because what you're really selling is not a suplex or, I don't know, a clothesline. A lot of people can do a suplex or a clothesline, but no one can do it quite like you. So that's your value. So that's what you're selling. So you're selling a lifestyle that people want to be a part of. And that's the very, very first stage. And you have to proactively create that lifestyle. And you already are creating it. Because part of it is your look. Part of it is the colors of your gear. Part of it is your entrance, your promos. You're already creating it. But your media presence serves to boost it, to make it bigger, better, deeper. That's where your branding comes in. What are the colors of your brand? Do you have a font that you use for everything? What's your entrance music? What's the music you use for your content? What's your website layout? Do you have a website? Do you have a written biography? A lot of people don't have a written biography, and that even applies to very, very famous wrestlers, to WWE superstars. Sometimes you would open someone's biography on their official website, and it looks something like, this and this year was born. This and this year signed with WWE. This and this year won the title. And it almost looks like they were born and immediately they signed with the company. And that's not what happened. You had a whole life before then. They had their childhood, they had their formative years, they had someone train them, pass the knowledge to them. They had their struggles, they had their hardships, their interests, something that they loved, something that they hate. And that's what people want to know because they already see you wrestle and they want to know you beyond that. And all of that creates an atmosphere. The chat says Sting did this very well. 1,000% I agree with this. There's a lot of wrestlers who do actually do this really well. And we connect with their stories. And there's a good part of, a good part of it is vulnerability. And that's coming back to your personal boundaries. Like how much of it are you actually comfortable sharing? Because, for example, when Serena Deeb came back from injury, that was a very good example of her like really letting us in and really being vulnerable and talking in detail about her injury and how she struggled, how she overcame it. It's definitely a mental load. It's definitely not something anyone would be just willing to share. But if you are, that can, really, really connect you with fans, really connect you with people. So the stage one would be atmosphere. Stage two after that, still not product. We're still haven't gotten to the product. Stage two after that is service. And that pretty much encapsulates how you're making a client, a buyer, a fan feel when they interact with the product, when they interact with you. So that's how you talk to them at the merch table. That's how you interact with them on social media, how you acknowledge, for example, the fan arts, how you acknowledge their support, how you acknowledge the posters, how you're making them feel when they're talking to you, interacting to you, following you. And again, wrestling is such a different world that this here to be great and to be effective doesn't have to be nice and sweet. You know, at meet and greets, MJF is an asshole to people. Matt Cardona is sometimes an asshole to people, but people know what they're buying. People already know the lifestyle, so that's what they come to the table for. They're not going to go to an MJF meet and greet and expect unicorns and cotton candy. That's exactly what they're buying. But by delivering it to them, for example, if you came to MJF's meet and greet and he was low energy and he didn't insult you once and he didn't throw shit, you wouldn't feel fulfilled as a client. You wouldn't feel like you got what you paid for. So service is a continuation of atmosphere. And you're providing them with an experience that makes them feel like they made the right choice by interacting with you. And only then comes the product. And only then the decision making on the product happens. And I'm sure the workers here know that better than I do, where I'm sure that especially we have, we have girls here right now, and I know for sure that you've had an experience where a fan buys a shirt, but he doesn't buy a shirt. He buys talking to you for 5 minutes. He buys standing next to you. He buys being able to tag you in the picture with the shirt and be like, hey, look at me as I'm supporting you. Nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying that that's what people are paying for. And when you're setting your prices for your merch, you're not pricing a shirt, you're pricing an experience. So that's exactly what the fans are doing this for. And since we're about to wrap up and open the floor for the questions, but one last thing, since we're talking about product, and I'm calling you guys product, I would just want you guys to understand this is not an insult. I am a product. I invited you guys here. I communicated what I do and what you're going to get when you come here. So I showed you the product, and you took the chance on the product. So what makes a product, in my humble opinion, with my experience in marketing and media and content creation? Three things. Number one, it has to be consistent. And that's why when you start posting on social media, you might hear me say, you might hear other people say that the more often you post, the better. And that's 1,000% true. I'm not going back on that. But it's really hard to start and go from 0 to 1,000 immediately. No one expects you to do that, especially if right now you're not very active on socials. Choose a pace, choose a consistency that's comfortable for you. One of my partners, mentors, actually says that once you take on something, you have to ask yourself, will I be able to do this consistently for 3 years? And if the answer is, whoa, no, then don't do it. Or choose a lighter approach, choose a lighter load. And it's better to be consistent for a long time than intense for a short time. And especially if your account is not very active right now, you're also going to overwhelm the algorithm if you suddenly start posting 3 times a day. If you used to post once a month and suddenly you're posting 3 times a day, Instagram is going to be like, oh, they were hacked. This is dangerous. I have to stop them. And you literally will get blocked by Instagram. So anything that you do on any social media platform has to be gradual. For example, if you didn't work out for 5 years, you wouldn't go and bench press 100 pounds right now. You just wouldn't do that because you'd get injured. So ease into it, start slow, establish a consistency and a schedule. Scary word, schedule. People don't like this word. A schedule that's comfortable for you. So if for a start that's once a week or twice a week, but consistently every week, that's so much better than spitting out 10 posts in 2 days and then just dying and disappearing and ghosting. Don't do that. Another reason why products should be consistent is because your customers, your fans, have to know what to expect from you. We all have a favorite TV show or a favorite YouTube channel. For example, I really like the show Severance. They're releasing the new season right now. And I know that the new episode releases every Friday, I think it is. If it released on Friday this week and on Thursday next week, we would be very confused. We wouldn't know what to expect. We wouldn't know when to expect it. We wouldn't have a pattern as a user of going on the streaming platform, checking it out, clicking it. So if you're not a content creator, I'm not saying that you have to post at the same time on the same day, but you have to be consistent with it. Don't disappear from your fans' lives. William is asking, is it best to schedule content ahead of time to keep consistency? Yes, I would think, it's a good solution. You would definitely have to sprinkle in current stuff here and there. For example, if you just had an episode release, you have to plug it, or you just wrestled on a show, or you're going to wrestle on a show tomorrow. That's something that you're going to want to post before it expires, before it's not relevant anymore. But yes, scheduling content is a great thing to do. And even if it's just drafting content and saving the drafts and then later posting, that's good too. I would say don't have too many drafts. And by too many, I mean like 20. That would be too much because you're also training the platform to be insecure in your posting. You're training the platform to see that you're going to edit something, you're going to save something, and the platform doesn't know if you're going to post it. So don't overcrowd your drafts, but it's good to have drafts. It's good to schedule content. The second thing that makes product a product is predictability. And that's very noticeable with the short form video content these days with TikTok, with Reels. The best way to gain followers is deliver content that when people click on your profile and come to you from this content, they're going to find more of it. That's literally the best way to get people to follow you because people now are, brain rotting, scrolling, and they get fixated on something and they want more of it. So I think, again, with wrestlers, that's a little easier because ultimately you're you and you wrestle in a certain way and you look a certain way. And when people come to your profile, they're going to see more of you. But when it comes to content creators, personalities, you just have to keep it somewhat consistent, somewhat predictable. For example, one day you post, I don't know, a 20-minute video of you fishing at a frozen lake, and then the next day it's your ring announcing. Probably not going to work like that. So, if it's one fishing video a month, I would support you on that, even though I don't support fishing as a concept. That's just me. But if it's just this all over the place type of posting, definitely not a good thing to do. And the third thing that makes a product, and arguably the most important thing, is the product being original. And that's a thing that a lot of professionals have to, pun intended, wrestle with and have to actually figure out. What makes you different? And I think, again, for the workers, it's not a foreign question because that's your entire position as a wrestler. Like I said, anyone can do a clothesline, but how am I different? How am I better than them? How do I do differently? And when it comes to personalities and content creators that we have a lot of here, find that one selling point, that one difference point. What are you the best at? What are you doing that no one else is doing? What are you doing that is underrepresented in the market? There's an underserved audience for it. And that's exactly what I do. You don't have to go far for an example. That's what I do. I'm, as far as I know, the only, but maybe one out of very, very few new media professionals that specifically specializes in wrestling. This is my unique offer. I'm the only person of this kind, this qualification with a master's degree, with experience that you're going to find who's a new media professional specifically in wrestling. So find something like this. What makes you different? What makes you stand out? So I think that was a good introduction. This is the time for me to tell you guys that I'm doing this next week, same time, and we're going to move forward. And if you want to attend, you can press the exact same link, and I will email all of you after this as well. And now, if you guys have any questions, feel free. Which on-screen personality, Xenia, do you believe handles positioning better than anyone, current or retired? Ooh, that's a good question. The example that immediately jumps to mind is The Rock. And The Rock is actually the example that I give all of my proteges, all of my clients, because he just has it down to a T. And I'm sure he has a team who does it, and I'm sure he, invests a lot in it. But ultimately, he's the perfect combination of plugin his own product, plugin adjacent product, staying somewhat in character across all of it. And even though he does share personal things, he does share his family, his daughters, but he's still the rock in every single piece of content. And if you look at his content, the way he does product plugs is immaculate. It's the best way to do it. He has a very loyal audience, and he knows that. So whenever there's a reel that features his tequila or his skincare line, you will be watching the reel and you wouldn't even realize that you've watched like a 20 or 30-second opus before the plug even came in. And he does that because he knows that people buy atmosphere, that people are going to watch the reel regardless, to immerse into it, to experience it, and then he's gonna show the product. He's giving and then asking. And that's another honestly golden rule of selling anything. We call it value-based marketing. First, you provide value, and only then you ask people for something. Okay, another question. You mentioned that we imagine an avatar for a typical fan. Can you expand on this bit? Yeah, absolutely. So we're pretty much imagining what our perfect fan would be. And I'm not asking you guys to adopt this as a limiting belief. Like I said, ultimately wrestling is for everyone and you can have any kind of fan, right? But what is your wrestling specifically like, or your content or your product? And who is it for? For example, the very easy first step to ask yourself is, where am I located? And you're targeting local fans. Or for example, if you really want to wrestle in Japan and you think your style is a good fit for Japan, then you're aiming at Japanese promotions or Japanese fans. What gender are your fans? Where do they live? How old are they? If you have an old school style of wrestling, you're going to appeal to an older audience. If you're very like comedy meme based, you're going to appeal to Gen Z, Gen Alpha audience. And again, I can't answer this question for you, but it's something that you have to introspect about and something that you have to figure out. And you can also do that by watching your current audience. So what kind of people come up to my table? What kind of people support me? And you can go from there, but it's something for you to figure out. What are things to be mindful to not alienate a possible follower? Good question, by the way. I say, first of all, don't be negative. Like, don't be a hater, unless that's your gimmick. But I see a lot of people who are, good guys or girls who have this cheerful character, and then you'll be scrolling on the feed and you see their comment on something. They're just hating for no reason. They're insulting someone's physical appearance or they're insulting someone's beliefs, and they're just being this bitter person. And one thing a lot of people don't realize is everything that you do on social media, first of all, leaves a trace. If you said something on the internet, it's forever. Trust me, I know from experience. Uh, and anything that you do on social media, your potential followers or your existing followers are going to see. You're not hiding anything. If it's a reply to someone else's tweet, if it's a comment under an obscure reel, chances are someone is still going to see it. So behave yourself, don't be something that you don't want people to see you as. And when it comes to posting, I also don't feel like it's a good thing to be antagonistic, like it's a good thing to be controversial all the time, like it's a good thing to be edgy just for the sake of being edgy. And that's something that I see a lot of wrestlers doing. I don't think it benefits anyone. It might generate you quick hype. It might, get you seen, noticed, but quick hype on social media is short-lived. And it's better to build a loyal audience than to get negative attention and then just coast on it. Do you have info on how many wrestling fans in the US? So a fan is, it's a spectrum, but we know that at least 40% of people in the US somewhat consume a wrestling product. And that, ranges all the way from a diehard fan who goes to shows every weekend to someone's mom or sister who kind of watches the show like on the edge of the couch while you're watching it. So it's a humongous audience. And it's really not a zero-sum game. There really is room for everyone. And there really is a perfect fan and a perfect audience for everyone. And there's enough space for everyone. Who are the best indie wrestlers from business perspective outside of the ring? Again, I think the person who immediately jumps to mind is Matt Cardona. Uh, he's really great at the merch thing. He's really great. And in the email that I sent you guys, if you want, I'll share with you his video about how he does merch, actually. That's very interesting. And he has a lot of great insights there. Denhausen is great, very over. And even though we've had a bit, of a rocky time with his AW contract and him disappearing from the Indies and coming back. But if you're at a wrestling show, he will have one of the biggest lines at his merch table. Effie is amazing. From the marketing standpoint, absolutely amazing. And the secret why Effie is amazing is because he knows his value. And that's not just a philosophical expression, right? That's very numerical, actually. That's very mathematical. He knows he's a draw. He knows how many people are in the building because of him. He knows how much the promotion or promoter is going to lose out on if he's not on the show. And that gives him a strong position to negotiate. He knows his value. And that's a very important thing for a wrestler as well. Okay. Do we have any more questions, you guys? You know who connects really well with fans to really sell the product outside of events is Justin Roberts, true, of AW. He loves the business, the fans, and the product of AW. Always takes the time to give others his personal time. Yeah, 100% agree with that. And if you're ever at an AW show, you'll see Justin Roberts staying later after the show and taking selfies with the fans, talking with the fans, connecting with them. And for you it's maybe 20 minutes out of your day, and I know we're all tired after the shows and maybe we haven't slept, maybe we haven't eaten, but ultimately you're investing your time into your loyal audience. And I'm a big believer in investing time first and money second. I do think paid advertising can be really good, but ultimately your less finite resource is time. So if you can do something for free, I really like this cheesy expression, kindness is free. So connecting with the fans, stopping to shake a baby's hand who's going to be your lifelong fan and bring you revenue for another 50 years is going to be life changing for them and for you possibly as well. Okay. From personal experience, I'm always one of the last to leave. Even after the ring is down, the fans are very appreciative of that, more than you can know. Giving them your time is very important, 1,000%. And yeah, I couldn't agree more. When you say about the business and the model, how much money I can make as an indie wrestler personality if I follow the model ideas. Like I said, it's pretty much simple math. Like whatever your booking fees right now and whatever you get in a month, in a week, that's 10%. So you can count up to 100%. And like I said, a fan is ready, if you're their favorite, if you've connected, if you've succeeded at connecting with them, is ready to spend, give or take, $200 a month on you. And if you can find 1,000 fans like that, and that's not a lot, that's not a big number. A lot of you already have more than 1,000 followers. That's really, with the power of social media, 1,000 people is not that many to be able to reach. But if you find those 1,000 quality people who love you to bits, who are ready to buy anything that you sell, and each of them spend $200 a month on you, that's $200,000 a month. So, and a lot of people are just leaving that on the table by not being on social media, by not offering merch, by not doing sponsorships. And a lot of people have a huge following. Hundreds of thousands of followers are not monetizing their socials, they're not on top of their merch game, and that's all money left on the table. How selective should talent be with regard to podcast appearances? Very good question, and I've actually talked about that on my podcast appearances. I think a good thing to keep in mind when it comes to that is balance, as in power balance, and who is actually helping who in a scenario. So there's a practice of wrestlers asking for money to be on podcasts, and when people found out, there was an uproar, which was unreasonable, if you ask me, because ultimately it's an exchange of audiences. So what I'm going to say is, if you're a smaller independent wrestler, just be a yes man. Say yes to everything. Because it could be, it could be exposed to 100 people, it could be exposed to 1,000 to 10,000. It's still a new audience for you. It's still people who are going to see you. And if it's well edited, they'll see your B-roll, they'll see your moves, and they'll love you. But then if we're talking medium size versus medium size, if it's a podcast, the size of which is give or take 5,000 is similar to your following, absolutely do it. And you both are going to benefit from it. You're going to exchange audiences. But then when it comes to the imbalanced situations is when the question comes in. For example, I don't know, you're signed AEW wrestler and you're on TV twice a week, and a podcast comes to you that has 500 followers. Maybe not the greatest idea to do it unless there's any other underlying factor that can make it good for you. For example, if it's a specific niche audience, or if it's a specific country, for example, that they're from, or the opposite. If you're a very small indie wrestler and a huge podcast invites you, then yes, absolutely. I think it's just very situational. So you have to ask yourself, when I'm going on this podcast, are they helping me or am I helping them? And if you're a kind-hearted person, you want to help them, and you have that 3 hour, also do it 1,000%. Why not? Okay. As a podcaster, as a podcaster, I'd say be very selective. Certain shows won't do justice for your product. Don't always say no, but what can the interviewer provide? Balance is key to at worst do show and never come back. Some smaller shows are better than larger ones. Yeah, that's true. Like you're not gonna know until you do it. And yeah, worst case scenario, never come again. Worst case scenario, tell them to not release the episode if you absolutely hate it. But then if you're a whole person yourself, if you're a whole character, how badly can an interviewer do to make you do or say something that you don't like? Ultimately, you're the star of your own show. You're your own main character. So if you're coming on the show with that mindset, even a terrible host is not going to make you look bad unless it's their intention, which then, if you can see that someone's intentions are not good, I say 100% quit, like on the spot, leave the call, because there's some bad people out there. There's some people who are trying to uh, harass you. There's some people who are trying to make you say something that you'll regret. No shame in just leaving the situations that are not good for you. Did we hear that correctly? Indie wrestlers could become even millionaires. Yeah, 1,000% indie wrestlers can become millionaires. We are so past the time where everything depended on a promotion. That is so in the past. And that's why when we say media rights and content, right, that whole activity used to be just whether your promotion is on TV or not. Are you getting TV time or not? Did the promoter decide that you get 10 minutes of TV time? And outside of that, you have no way to reach a wider audience than the audience that comes up to your table after the show. We are so past that time. You have a TV in your pocket, pretty much. You have your own TV time. You have your own TV deal. You have your own viewers, your own audience. So how much money you make from wrestling is not at all restricted by whether you're on TV or not, or whether you're signed or not. Yeah, $1 Million Man 2.0. Noah says, yeah, 1,000%. Okay, any more questions? No? Everything's clear. I think that was a lot of information for an hour of time. You guys can digest it. I will send you a recording of this for you to have it. And like I said, if you want to continue, I'll see you next week here, same time, same place. And I know some people prior to this messaged me that they'd like to talk about the individual guidance programs. So DM me or email me, however you reached me before this. Feel free to contact me. And thank you for coming. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you found this interesting.